All right, welcome in. Cube Show Podcast, college football podcast, usually comes to you on Sundays. Hopefully we're going to be back on track with that now with the UFL season over. Well, at least over for me. I was in Birmingham again yesterday. Insane game, by the way, if you missed that one on ABC or didn't get down to Protective Stadium. The Stallions going to go on and play for a UFL championship. 6 combined turnovers in the third quarter. I'm not sure I've ever seen it. Just continue giving the ball back to one another. It was completely insane. Pretty good football. You'll get San Antonio and St. Louis tonight, and that'll decide who Birmingham meets in the UFL title game next week. So I'll be done. Should be back on track. Things slowing down for me just a little bit. I've got studio work in Charlotte coming up this week. We'll give you the rest of the SEC schedule release, and then we'll probably have an episode about that to talk about it. But I got a couple other kind of random topics that I want to get to. We're going to finish up the team spring reviews. We have time to get to that before SEC Media Days and then the season. But I had a couple things come my way. I've been writing them down. I want to get to them. And I want to just kind of come at you in a little bit of a different way than we have recently. A little more laid back, a little bit more, I don't know, I guess kind of like some of the radio shows that I do. And get your thoughts, your opinions on a topic that I thought was interesting and I don't really have a lot of definitive answers for. We're going to talk college football coaches today, but as you know, every day we're brought to you by Wickles Pickles, wickedly delicious. We always have them right here. If you're watching on YouTube, you see the giant jar that we keep in stock. Wickedly delicious. Go to wickles.com, check them out. All your socials, at Wickles Pickles on Instagram. They have recipes, different ways to use them. They're fantastic. We snack on them. You're going to love them. Get the gear as well at wicklespickles.com. All right, there's a title sponsor of the show. We always appreciate them. So our buddy Josh Pate, that guy that has a podcast, and I were talking earlier this week, and we started talking about coaches and college football head coaches and different aspects of it. And the question kind of came up between the two of us of, you know, who are the most popular coaches, and that rolled into like, all right, who are the most coaches with the most notoriety? And then so it got to the point of, all right, if you had to choose Rockstar college football head coaches right now, how many are there? And I want to know from you guys. You can tweet at Cube Show, go to the Instagram, we'll post something there. Leave your comments right here on YouTube. Like, how many Rockstar college football coaches do we have? Because I think Harbaugh fell into that category. He's gone. Saban obviously did. He's gone. There have been a couple others over the last few years maybe that have departed and no longer going to be there. I think right now there's only 2. Rockstar college football coaches that everywhere they go, they're recognized. Anything they say is going to be polarizing one direction or the other. And that's Dabo Swinney and Kirby Smart. So we'll go through some of the others that maybe could be there, might get there, because one of the reasons I thought this was interesting is this new era of college football that we're entering. Is there an aspect of some other college football head coaches that are going to come in handy based on the new 12-team playoff and how that thing's going to operate? We saw the dates come out last week. The month of December is going to be really special. I don't know another way to put it, but I cannot wait for it. Love the regular season, want to get through it, want all the games, read and react, the whole thing. But holy hell, this December is going to be something to remember. I mean, you go look at that schedule of the bowls, number one. Then you look at the playoff schedule, sprinkling some NFL around it. Wow, it's going to be amazing. All right, so recently, if you go to college football playoff winning coaches, Saban, Dabo, Urban, Kirby, Harbaugh, Orgeron. So all we have left from that are Kirby and Dabo. Now, I don't think you necessarily have to win a playoff or have to have a national championship to be a superstar college football head coach. Now, it helps. It's going to go a long way. The instant credibility is going to be there. More attention going to come your way. You'll have a lot more spotlight to be able to put yourself up on that pedestal. But we're not going to say that you have to have that for right now. I just don't think you do. There are different reasons that people can ascend to this status other than just winning a title. Like, I think there are 2 that are really close to that right now that haven't won a national championship. That's Dan Lanning and Lane Kiffin. Guys that no matter what they do, where they go, people are going to know who they are. Dan Lanning, obviously, I think because of a little bit of where he's been before as the D coordinator, and then some of the ways that Oregon has utilized him in their social media and sort of built some things around him. It's, I think, elevated his profile a little bit. Lane, just everywhere he's been and the success that he's had. And then obviously the things that he says, how active he is on social media, that raises his profile as well. Those 2 are like knocking on the door. They might have the key in the door ready to turn the knob and step right in. I think all it's going to take is a couple of more winning seasons for those 2, and we can probably put them on that category. Like, I think an interesting name would be James Franklin. Everybody knows who he is. He's polarizing when he talks. He's a great speaker, great talker. He's dynamic in front of the camera, in front of you personally. But has he begun to rub some people the wrong way to where they don't want him in that category, so they don't continue to elevate him? Does he need to win more? Has he underachieved at Penn State to where he's not going to be able to get into that category? But if you take a lot of these qualifiers, I do think he has a pretty good number of them. I think Lincoln Riley is a similar category there. I mean, the quarterbacks he's worked with alone raise his profile. We're going to talk about him and the awards that they've won and what they've done in the NFL, where they've been drafted, being at Oklahoma, then USC. There are not many coaches that have been at two bigger brands and coached than that. So he's obviously going to be up there. And now he's in Hollywood, where you're going to get some more attention in different ways. But has he begun to maybe not live up to some expectations, and that's going to keep his profile down instead of just exploding upwards? I think Steve Sarkisian he might be there. I think a little bit of an up and down career with some personal things, but he's back on track now, and he's at one of the bigger brands in college football, and he is a dynamic speaker. He is someone who I think, as he enters into the SEC and has more big games that are going to bring more attention to him with more reasons to talk about his football team, I think his profile is just going to continue to climb. Sark may already be on that list also. I might be a little bit too stingy with just Kirby and Dabo. This is why I want your feedback on this. Let us know in the comments, tweet to us. Go to the Instagram, give us your thoughts right there. You can tweet at me at Cole Kublik and just say, you're dumb. This guy needs to be here. This guy needs to be here. I have tried to go back and look at a little bit of the history of when the last time we entered a college football season with only 3 active coaches that had a national championship. Dabo, Kirby, Mack Brown. That's it. Now there's 5 between the 3 of them. So it's a pretty decent number for those 3, but we had Jimbo Fisher hanging around for a while. Chiswick was sort of in the game for a minute. Orgeron was in the game for a little while. Urban was sort of in and out. Like, we had other guys that had a title. Les Miles kind of hung on for a little bit and was in and out. We've had some of the other names that have been in there that have been able to figure that out and get that championship. Now seems like fewer than we've had in quite some time. I still want a definitive number. Haven't been able to come up with it yet. Still working on that. So who else is maybe potentially going to be able to get there? How much of this has to do with where you are? Because a big part of why Josh and I started talking about this was, do the schools need to start spending more time marketing the coach? Going back to what we talked about with Oregon and what they did and how they did it. Do you want to put your resources into that? This is where the NIL aspect of this becomes very interesting, because you're probably not going to win a ton of games in this day and era. We don't know exactly where we're going to land, where we're going to end up. But if you don't have a pretty big NIL pot to go pull from, are you going to be able to get good enough players to win a national championship? Is that even going to be real? So you probably have to be branded to a certain aspect of where you are and the strength that comes with that to reach these plateaus that we're talking about. And do you even need to be this kind of a coach and have this kind of popularity to go win a title? Is your profile that important in recruiting anymore? Or does it just slide over to the NIL portion of it? And that's going to be the bigger reason that we go get that. And then from that perspective, if it does go that way, do we get back to X's and O's? Are we going to get back to, more coaches that are going to win titles because of their actual coaching acumen and not their personalities or their recruiters or their network that they're going to be able to bring other assistants in? I don't really know. What I do know is we have a lot of coaches right now that are being asked to do jobs that they're not fit to do. And that's essentially be a general manager or a CEO or a CFO or an accountant or a personnel director for a Fortune 500 company. That's not what these guys were cut out to be in a lot of cases. Then you have the networking portion of it, the promotion portion of it that comes with that just a little bit. It's not for all of these guys. A lot of them got where they are because of how well they coach, how well they design plays, how well they recruit, things of that nature. And some of those things are being peeled away. I'm not saying they're not as important. It's just that there are more things that go with it. So as we enter the 12-team playoff era, I'm interested in, do we have certain advantages that will come into play here with a Brian Kelly having 2 Division II national titles, a Chris Kleiman having 4 FCS national championships, being at the biggest brand maybe in the FCS, Kalen DeBoer having 3 NAIA national championships, Lance Leipold having 63 titles. Do they have a better understanding of sort of how to manage the roster, how to operate things when you get to week 10, 11, 12, knowing you're going to that postseason and you have to have that stretch and your team has to be climbing once you get into that stretch? I don't know the answer to this. I just think it's interesting because of where we are. in this profession right now. A lot of people have made a ton of the guys that have gone to the NFL. Other people have kind of tried to poop on that and say it's really not that many, it's not that big a deal. Either way, it feels like the experience of championship caliber coaches right now may be less than it's been in 2 decades. And so what is the most important thing moving forward, just from a coaching perspective? Because those guys I just mentioned, I think they might already be, or at least could be, rapidly accelerating towards being superstar head coaches. Kalen DeBoer's got an amazing personality. He wins a title at Bama, he's going to be there. He gets close a couple times, he'll probably be there. Brian Kelly should already be there, by the way, because he's a hell of a talker and he's won at a lot of different places, and I think he's dynamic. Just a couple of things that have happened that people have been able to latch onto from a negative perspective that maybe have kept that from taking place. Lance Leipold, kind of the same way. When you really sit down and talk to him, he can be that kind of a guy. I just don't think he runs to the camera as often as some other coaches do. So that also brings us to Ryan Day, Mike Norvell, Brent Venables. They're going to be at places that have the brand recognition to be able to go do it. If they just win enough, are they there? And that kind of is why I go to, should the school begin to promote the coaches a little bit more? Because at the end of the day, the coaches are the stars of the program, right? That's a rhetorical question, because a lot of people and a lot of you are going to say, no, it's the players. Well, how long are the players there these days? Like when we get 3, 4, 5 more years down the road, what's the average lifespan of a college football player at an individual university going to be? 1.5 years? 2 1/3 years? I mean, I don't know the answer once again, but I just think it's interesting looking forward, because if you know your roster turnover is going to be 25 to 35% every year, do you put more into the coach? Do you market the coach a little bit more? Do you build things around the coach? And then if you put X amount of dollars into your coach for 3 to 5 years and then he's gone, there's obviously going to be no return on that investment. You're already looking for a return on a massive investment that you're paying him and his staff every year anyway. So should you market college coaches? One part of this is I think college coaches could be marketing themselves a little bit more. There are ways and things that they could be going out and doing in the public, in the media, to be able to build their persona, build their brand, and help elevate the brand of their program if it's really needed. Now, a lot of coaches understand this. You take a guy like Bruce Pearl at Auburn. He understood Auburn basketball wasn't where a lot of other schools in the league were, so he worked hard to try to get that up there and paid a lot of attention to it. When James Franklin was at Vanderbilt, I saw him firsthand do this. Guys on the street handing out ice cream, going to basketball games, giving tickets away. Like, he's doing all these things in the community because he had to then. I imagine he doesn't have to do a ton of that at Penn State. But if all of these things are now circulating around what it's really going to take to win, who's going to try to go do some of the other things, and who's going to be good at the things that maybe are required a little bit more to go win a national championship? You look at guys like a Mike Elko, a Hugh Freeze. They're at places that if they elevate enough, I think they could get there. I think they could potentially find their way there. I don't think those are two guys that are necessarily attention hungry enough to try to force themselves into that spotlight, even if they do win. But I think it's feasible. Eli Drinkowitz and coaches like him that have that big personality, that love sitting down and talking to people and aren't afraid to say things that might rub a few people the wrong way, I think could easily elevate into this spot, even if they don't go win a national championship. So there's a lot of different aspects as to why this is interesting and why I think it's a worthy conversation, because we're heading to a new era of college football. Now, you should probably be heading to a new era of denim, and that would be Blue Delta Jeans. Go to bluedeltajeans.com. Tell them you heard about them right here on Cube Show. Nick and the guys will take care of you. They can fit you digitally now. So you go to bluedeltajeans.com. You can get fit, custom denim just for you, breathable, stretchy. You can make them look dressy, dress them up. They can be casual. Father's Day right around the corner. You got kids starting school again, maybe sit them off with a pair of Blue Delta jeans. You will be happy that you did, because they are amazing. And if you see me wearing jeans on television, that's what they are. So tell the guys you heard about them right here on Cube Show. All this being said, what is next for how you're going to be able to win national championships? Who can do all these other jobs the best? How many coaches are going to be considered superstars, rock stars in this profession by the time this thing's said and done, or their careers are said and done, when you take the active coaches right now? Now, there's some that we left off the list. There's some that I think have a ton of popularity, but mainly are probably just flat, like a Mike Gundy per se. I think a lot of people know who he is. I think he's got a great personality. He can be polarizing and dynamic, but is the ability to continue to ascend there for him? Is that really going to happen? I don't know. There's been a lot of turnover. In what direction do some of these ADs go with where we continue to pull away? If the Big Ten and the SEC and if the Big 12 or the ACC are going to come with them, continue to go down this path further and further away from everybody else, where do you put your resources? Because most of it's going to go to NIL, but then you can help build NIL with all of your players if you market them, correct? I would think so. Yeah, absolutely. So we market our players. They can go make more at the local oil change shop, the barbecue shop. I'm talking about the things that are not fake NIL, the real NIL. They can go out. They can get their Lamborghini deal if they want to. Fine, cool, have at it. But we helped you get that because we put photos and graphics and put your name and your stats out. Like, we marketed you to where you are more appealing, and that's why these guys got it. They can give that to the next set of kids that want to come in. But it's dangerous to do that, because the more you market your kids and the better they play, the more valuable they become. And the more valuable they become, the harder they become to keep. So that little bit of tug of war of who do we push, who do we want at the face of our program, who do we want to be out there selling, pushing, talking about our program, who do we want pushing brands from our program? And some of that's not within the school's control, but some of it is. Our school's going to begin, because they all want this NIL thing to come in-house so they can control it. And I do think a large portion of NIL becomes real when that happens, because you're probably going to move to the private equity part of it, or at least you're going to be getting enough money where you're going to have to treat it that way, and you want a real return on your investment. So if you want to go market your players, just be ready for 3-star Johnny to all of a sudden be a big-time player, and he skyrockets and people are all about him and they want him, and you got to figure out a way to keep him after you've already put all these resources into him. It's just a lot of cool things to think about, a lot of different ways to think about a lot of these college football playoff era that we're heading into with 12 teams, how we're going to manage the rosters, what coaches are going to be able to do, if the staffs are going to be able to increase. Like, now you read stories that say, these army of analysts are going to probably go away with some of the money that's now going to get really tight. They're going to start pinching pennies. So certain things like that are not just going to be a reality for a lot of places anymore. Some can do it no matter what. It won't really matter. So I'm anxious to get your feedback on this. Like I said, a little bit of a different episode today. I want to try to change it up. This was a topic that Josh and I had the conversation about it, and I said, I'm going to throw that out on the pod, see what everybody thinks about it. And then we'll come back and do a couple more team reviews before we get to media days. And I have something else that I want to get to later in the week. And I still want to talk about the aspect of private equity coming into college football, because I have a friend that I think would make a great conversation for that. We'll try to get to that down the road. If you're on YouTube, please subscribe. It's a little bit of a shorter episode. I want to get in, get out, more about getting some feedback from you. Let us know what you think. Please subscribe there on YouTube. We're so close to 10,000 followers. We're trying to get there. Need your help. @Cube Show on Twitter, @Cube Show on Instagram, and we'll be back with a new episode next week.